Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Inside Movies Galore, where we talk about various films and various people. But today, we are ending out our July with a pick from our very own Crypt of Horrors, Dustin. So, what did you bring us today?
Well, normally we do older movies, but I thought it'd be fun to do something a bit more contemporary. So today we're talking about this year's M3GAN, M3GAN. Let me see if I can remember. Model 3 Generative Android, I think was how it was what that actually came out to. I forgot what the M was.
I think you're right.
I think you're right on that. Yeah, because I was particularly listening to it this time.
Yeah.
I've seen it a handful of times. I even got to watch the unrated one for the first time today. And for some reason, as soon as I started talking, it was just like, it is model, right? But anyway, so this movie came out in January and kind of took the internet by storm a little bit. Like, a lot of people were really excited to see this off of the strength of the first trailer. And the reputation it had did not disappoint, which is unfortunately something that happens kind of a lot with modern horror. Like, people will be like, it's fantastic, and then you'll watch it and be like, yeah, this is fine, but it's not blowing my socks off. But this was an exception to that in that it was actually pretty good. And seeing the unrated version now, which has, so I read a breakdown of what the difference between rated and unrated was, and this was released as PG-13 apparently, which I never check the ratings anymore, so I don't really know. But I can see how the original version of it was PG-13, because in a lot of the kills there are cutaways, like you don't see like the follow through, like somebody gets stabbed, or like an explosion of blood or anything. It's just like, I'm stabbed.
Yeah.
Whereas in the unrated, you see the blood. And so I think actually the unrated version covers some of the criticisms of this movie, in which people were like, oh, it pulls away before like the payoff of the kill scenes. And it doesn't in the unrated. So I think that was really the only complaint people had about it. Otherwise, everybody loved it. Like, it's very creepy. Like, it's got some interesting things to say about like technology, and can technology replace people? Like, relationship wise, like if your phone could talk to you and looked human, like would you form like that same kind of attachment with it? And there's some pretty good stuff in M3GAN, and it's already getting a sequel. So if you're familiar with horror or the internet, you probably did see the trailer for M3GAN at some point, particularly the scene where she creepily dances down a hallway. Apparently, I just learned this recently, that's like a TikTok dance, which I am not on, even though I should be. And I was like, where did she learn that from? And it's like, oh, okay, she's spending a lot of time with like this younger person, and they must have shown her stuff on TikTok.
So. Well, there's actually an extra story behind that. A lot of the creators did say that they did not find the scene fit very well with the film at all, but it was stuck in there purely for the advertising campaign. That was the only reason why they put the dance in there, was to advertise, because they knew the dance would go viral and it would drive people to the movie, which it did. It
worked.
I mean, I thought that with watching it, I thought she was some sort of dancing robot, and it was like, that was it. You saw maybe a scene where it looked like she was teaching her a dance or something, and that was about it otherwise.
Right.
So okay, so I guess both kind of hold up then, because that was, as soon as somebody said that in I watched some other videos like talking about this movie to kind of prepare for this, and somebody was like, it's a TikTok dance, and I was like, oh, that does make sense. So plot hole patched, I guess.
This went big around the same time that they had that Wednesday, that series, she was doing her dance thing, and they would do a lot of weird dance-offs between the two of them.
I might have seen some of those. It's kind of hard to remember in January because everything started on fire and has not gone out since. Around that time. But anyway, so yeah, the movie is pretty good. It does some important things it has to do to distinguish it like from Chucky, which is obviously the other like major killer doll movie. I guess Annabelle from Conjuring universe might be one too, but I actually haven't seen any of those except for the very first Conjuring. So in the extras, James Wan was talking about, it's like, yeah, people know me for creepy dolls, and I'm like, they do? And I was like, was he involved with Conjuring or something? And I just kind of made the assumption.
Well, there was that new Child's Play movie with Mark Hamill, but I can't remember whether he had anything to do with that one. But that one was about as close to M3GAN as one could get when it came to, because that one was less like a serial killer trapped in a doll's body and more.
It was basically M3GAN. Like, I almost wonder if that's kind of where the idea came from. But I don't know. The reception to that remake was not as good as I honestly think it should have been, because I thought it was a totally fine movie. Just with Child's Play and Chucky, you have expectations, and it delivered on a lot of the stuff, but it kind of had a different feel. Excuse me, because it just wasn't, it wasn't, Charles Lee Ray, it wasn't Voodoo, it was different, but I thought it was okay. And maybe that's why I liked this so much too, because I think it is a good idea for a story. Some people were saying it's kind of like a longer Black Mirror episode, which somehow I have avoided Black Mirror for all these years, even though I really do need to see it. And from what I know about it, I think that's probably a fair criticism that, it feels just like a Black Mirror episode. So, anybody have any thoughts on any of that stuff I just blasted out?
Well, on James Wan, just as a side note, actually there are 3 killer dolls that are associated with Wan. One could associate the doll from Saw, because he did that one. And then there was Dead Silence. And which most people forget. And then, of course, there is The Conjuring.
Damn, I just got Dead Silence like a month and a half ago when it was on sale on Amazon for like $18 versus like the typical $40 everywhere else. So I somehow found $20 to pick that up, and it's in my pile over there. I completely forgot about that.
I think it's underrated, but
everybody said it was really good and I should get it. Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and throw out my first impression of the film. And when I saw this, and it got a very late December release so that it could just squeak in for the 2022 year. So I kept seeing this along with Christmas stuff on TV. And I kept saying, well, I really want to see that, but I don't want to spend the money on it. And I just kept seeing the stuff with the dancing doll. So eventually, when it finally got released and it finally went to streaming, I went ahead and I got the unrated version. So I've never seen the theatrical. And I liked it. My first impression was, where's the dancing? But after that, I actually really liked it. I thought it was fun. Not necessarily super creative overall, because it's been done before, but it's still really good. It definitely brings out the horror. And I thought that they managed to use that killer AI very well with her, especially at the end. I did like, even with that from the beginning to the end, that M3GAN wasn't a killer robot when she first got born. She kind of learned that as she went along, and I did like that. I think that's probably one of the things that really makes it better, in my opinion, than the Child's Play remake, even though I didn't mind that one. But, people hate change a lot of times.
That's really what a lot of it is. So, and I agree with that too, that it being a more learned experience thing. It's like, For some reason, now I'm thinking of like the ship from Rick and Morty. Keep Summer safe. Like somebody like approaches the ship asking for change, and it like just melts him because it's it's doing what it's programmed to do, just not in a good way.
But she even makes a statement to that at the end. Is like, well, it's your fault. You should have programmed the parameters in, and I didn't do all this stuff on my own. How about you, Jake? Did you have a first impression?
Well, yeah. This was one that you're right. It kind of slipped through the crack of, it's in that weird zone. You said slipped in the end of 22, but actually, the U.S. debut was the first weekend of 23. It was a rare movie that opened on the first weekend in January that people actually liked.
That's what
but apparently had an international release right around Christmas time, which is kind of weird. Sometimes I always find it weird when seemingly American productions get a debut elsewhere first. But this was one that I definitely heard about when it came out. But you can tell how much I paid attention. It was kind of on my radar, but it was more like, yeah, I'll get to it. It looked vaguely interesting. And then when it was put forward for this, I was like, okay, all right, here's my excuse to see it. That'd be nice to see a recent film. The timing was perfect because it is technically a 22 film, and we're getting ready to receive nominations for the Versus Awards. So that was very well timed. It was actually one of 422 releases I saw yesterday. As far as regular versus unrated, I can swear I selected the unrated one. But I'm reasonably sure I saw the theatrical cut.
Hey, probably better in your case.
What's that?
Probably better in your case.
Probably better in my case. From what I understand, there were a couple of scenes I would have just as soon done without.
That ear scene, though it was fakish looking, it still bothered me a little bit.
Oh, the ear scene was in the cut I saw, no doubt. The ear scene was there.
Was there blood?
Yes.
Okay, because apparently the difference with that is in the unrated one, there's like squirting blood when she rips it off.
Okay, I don't remember if it was squirting.
And the power washer death is the most
that's
obviously different one.
That's the one that makes me think that I saw the theatrical cut because that wasn't too gruesome. And my understanding is that the unrated one, they went pretty much further.
They showed the power washer like peeling like part of her face off. Yeah,
that's not so pleasant. But
it was pretty restrained, even in the
unrated.
It was like I feel like you could have maybe gotten away with that in PG-13.
Well, no, probably not PG-13. They would have gotten away with it in R.
Oh yeah,
and that my understanding is that one of the reasons they went with PG-13, at least according to IMDb, one of the reasons they went with PG-13 was all they needed to do was make a couple little nips here and there, and they were good. It was
very tame. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what I remember hearing in the extras too. Because this, the disc that this comes on only has like 3 extras. They're like 5 to 10 minute featurettes, and there's only 3 of them. So it was pretty easy to watch those a couple times. Okay. There's no commentary, which I found disappointing, but oh well. It comes theatrical and unrated.
And incidentally, I'll go ahead and throw out because before I think you were still giving your intro, but IMDb definitely confirms Model 3 Generative Android is the official name. But my initial take on this was that it was quite interesting. Again, I think Brandon's correct that this basic idea has been put forward more than once. The idea of androids or something of that nature getting potentially very dangerous, especially if you got like this one. It was kind of a brilliant piece of work. And yes, her designer really, really did screw the pooch by setting this into motion without creating certain parameters. And one of the parameters clearly was right versus wrong. You know, the scene where she's talking with her and she directly says, but what you're doing is just wrong. And she just kind of cocks her head and she's like, is it? You know, like, I don't remember exactly what she says, but it was kind of like, I wouldn't know that, you know?
Well, humans kill each other every day. Why
What's
should
that?
I be any different from them?
What's that?
And she was like, humans kill each other every day. Why
Yeah,
should I be any
exactly.
different?
Exactly.
So,
And yeah, by that logic, she was, if anything, being quite human. And certainly the people she started out with and the dog that she started out with, no one's going to miss them. I mean, you know, and she really wasn't deviating from her programming, at least until she figured out how to reprogram herself. And then it got a little, you know, but, overall, I thought it was an interesting film. It did have some good ideas, pretty good acting overall, pretty impressive overall production, suitably creepy at times. Yeah, I was glad I got a chance to see it. And yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess I may have lucked into the correct version for me to watch. I mean, I don't know that I need one that's more explicit than that, but you know. Yeah.
oh no, you're all about that gory stuff. You love that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the differences are very minor, so you really don't miss much. I mean, aside from the moments having like more impact, like more punch to them with the blood and gore, you can watch it like just fine without it. It's just if you're like an experienced like horror movie lover, you might have been a little bit let down. It's like, oh man, the guy got stabbed in the heart. Why isn't there blood flying everywhere?
And you said
there it
before,
is when you see the unrated. So
you said before you thought most of the complaints. I really don't think most of the complaints, but probably at least with a certain subset, most of the complaints maybe might have been because they cut away too soon or whatever.
exactly.
I personally feel like knowing when to pull away can be a very good mark of quality filmmaking. And sometimes not showing something can be more effective than showing. In fact, that's often the case. But it's different in every film, and it's going to be different for every audience member. I mean, I might prefer cutting away before someone's face is peeled off with a pressure washer, and someone else might go, what the hell? You're supposed to go down to the bone, you bastards. You know, it just depends on the person, you know.
I mean, that's fair. I just think that was. I was trying to think of criticisms of this movie because I didn't want to just be like, oh yeah, it's great, hell yeah, you know, because there are a couple things I think could have been like tweaked a little bit, but that was the biggest one in my opinion, was that it wasn't. This kind of came out on the heels of like Terrifier 2, and I'm kind of happy it didn't try to like match or like top anything in Terrifier because I don't think that would have worked for this story.
Topping that one definitely.
Yeah, well, I think after seeing something like that in theaters, people were expecting kind of more. You know what I mean? So that's my personal theory on maybe why some people were kind of on parts of it. Because I mean, I spend way too much time on Twitter, and I'm trying to remember what I saw people say. And the few complaints were kind of along those lines. Like, why does it cut away? It's like, okay, I see what you're saying here.
Also, and again, this may be my personal viewpoint. And again, I'm no horror expert. You guys probably know, or Dustin, you at least probably are more plugged into this than I am. But this is a Blumhouse production, and I have gotten. I saw in the comments that they were specifically trying to give this a little bit of humor. And also, a Blumhouse, from what I can tell, is very good. They have so far had a very good track record of creating films that are atmospheric, that are either really creepy or really funny or some combination thereof, while also being legit horror. They're not really necessarily known for blood, guts, and gore. And I kind of hope they stay that way. But, that my impression is if I see a Blumhouse production, I'm like, ooh, this could be interesting,
No, I see. Yeah, I think that's mostly accurate. I mean, they have had a couple of kind of duds here and there. Like there was this one I haven't seen yet called Fantasy Island, which was not very well received.
It was not well received.
And I think they did the Black Christmas remake, like the one that was...
that wasn't well received either, but it was better than what people made it out to be.
I agree, actually. Yeah, I thought it was okay. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm smart enough to understand what you're going for here. You don't have to tell me every, other line of dialogue. Like, I get it.
That's all right. I think that if you take it as a tongue-in-cheek film instead of trying to take it seriously as a horror film, it goes across much better.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, they're fighting toxic masculinity as the ghost.
It's literally like black goo that possesses people, and it's like, oh, we are very literal with this. God damn.
I guess we should get into the actual story.
Well, anyway, like you were saying though, with how they wanted it to be kind of funnier, in the commentary, some of the production crew and I think even Jason Blum were talking about how it was supposed to be kind of like a dark comedy, and some of it is kind of fun. Like it does have pretty funny moments.
Yeah,
the toy commercial at the beginning, it's like
that's the first hell.
When that first started up, I was like, the hell is this shit? Oh, it's part of the movie.
Yeah. It looked like somebody took a Furby and said, okay, what was creepy about the Furby? Okay, let's make it worse.
Let's dial it up.
Let's give it teeth.
It's like someone crossed Furbies with trolls and just...
That's a fun thing with this movie though. Like it nails marketing tactics pretty well. Because I saw that commercial and I was like, "Is this a real commercial?" And then they were kind of like, "But they got old and died," and it's like, "Oh, you're messing with me." So I thought that was a fun kind of accurate take on things. But at any rate, I guess we should probably get into the movie going off that, unless there were a couple more points to make.
Oh no, we'll get to it.
Okay, so anyway, the movie starts off with introducing perpetual pets in that commercial, and we cut away to Katie and her parents driving for what's revealed later in the movie to be like a ski trip weekend kind of thing that they're doing, like a ski vacation they're going on.
And we're going to the Overlook.
Could be.
I feel like the drive to the Overlook had more open space, but I get what you're saying. Like they looked like they were in the middle of the woods and it was really snowing really hard. Whereas the Overlook drive, I think, wasn't it just on a cliff?
I would say if you're going to go with Stephen King, it's more like the opening of Misery.
That's what I was looking for.
When he gets caught in that really bad storm. Yeah. Only instead of Annie Wilkes coming to save everyone, the parents snuff it and the little girl is the only survivor.
Yeah, that was kind of a rough cut. I mean, because they're having a fight already. Yeah. And then they look up and, bam, hit by a snowplow, going way faster than you would expect a snowplow to be able to go. So already so it's already a pretty
Mm-hmm.
well, it's a lot. Like this is a surprisingly emotionally heavy movie. Like if you put yourself into like Katie's shoes, like it's oh my. So and that's one of the other things I think people responded to with it was that it has like a real like message about like and loss.
Well, it sets up one of the major central points of the film, which is that she goes to live with her aunt, the toy developer, who is married to her work, as they say. And even though she technically is a toy developer, she never really thought of herself as a parent or anything like that. And so she finds herself taking in this girl who is suffering serious emotional trauma and baggage. And it's like, what's her solution? Well, she creates a toy that can take her place raising this girl, basically. And it's like, that might not have been the wisest course of action on multiple levels, but
well, it's a standard for most parents. Not most, but for a lot of parents this day and age, who really don't want to parent their children. They want society to make all the decisions for them. They want society to ban all the books that could be offensive to them. They want society to make it so that their child has it's like get rid of all the violent video games because the children could access them. Heck be it for us to actually parent.
Now, one thing you can say in Gemma's defense is she was fighting to keep the little girl from going to Florida.
Yeah.
She could live with her grandparents, but they're weird. I don't like it. And it's like, weird how? I see where we're going here.
But I do feel like, it is a take on a lot of parents today who really don't want to take responsibility for their children. And it's not because the parents are necessarily bad people per se. In some cases they are, but not all cases. In some cases, they just get so tied up in their own stuff that they tend to forget what's around them and responsibilities that they have.
Exactly. Everybody's kind of a workaholic nowadays. I mean, even like most of my friends who aren't even parents, like they are so busy all day, every day. Like they work essentially 20 hours a day. Like, well, okay, more like 18 because they do sleep, but like they never stop working. And so it's like, do you want to do something? It's like, no, I have exactly 3 hours for fun on Friday night, and that was booked last month, so I can't do anything with you now.
And I understand. I was working 70 hours a week at one point. I would come home, go to the hospital, work there till midnight. So
yeah.
Yep, that's how everybody is nowadays.
Yeah. It's like I took a day off yesterday, and I took a day for a road trip last week, and those are like the two mostly work-free days of maybe the last 2 months. It's like, but I mean, I've seen firsthand. I do see firsthand in multiple venues that you'll often have people who are really good people, really decent people who really do love their kids, but who really it's not. They really don't know how to parent, or they don't know how to kind of separate.
They don't know how to prioritize.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people are basically driving blind,
Right. Like I found a channel called Cinema Therapy, which is a pretty big channel, and they had an episode on Megan's. They had a video on M3GAN, which, and I'm kind of drawing some of the stuff from, because when I saw M3GAN, I picked up on a lot of those things, but to have like an actual like psychiatrist and like therapist like break it down, it's like, okay, here's exactly what's happening, and this part is accurate. You know, like hearing that was really helpful for understanding like the writing and the story like on a deeper level. So I would probably go check that out if anybody's actually listening to us.
Did they feel on this video that the psychiatry or what have you mostly checked out? That
they seemed pretty satisfied with it. They said, I think the like attachment theory part, they were like, that's not what attachment theory is, but we understand. Explaining to the audience, it's fine. I think was pretty much their conclusion on like a couple moments like that.
I don't expect any. In reality, I don't expect any true adherence to most mental health in an accurate fashion in a movie anyway. I mean, I don't... if they come close within like a horseshoe of it, maybe, I'm like, ooh, well, that's pretty decent. So I'm kind of glad with what they were doing with it at all. No, it wasn't attachment theory, but it's good enough. It was good enough for it. As somebody who does work in the field and diagnoses kids with trauma on a regular basis, it's fine. The movie's fine.
Pretty much, I think what their conclusion was too. Like I watched it a couple more times just to remember more of what they said, but I know it's hard to remember stuff. Like, holy crap.
Right.
But yeah, actually, it's they made that social worker almost into a villain, even though the social worker wasn't. But you could tell the social worker really wanted a 2-parent household for that kid. And
they were not very shy about it either.
And she did have her own ideas as to what she thought was the best thing for the child. But,
now, granted, Gemma did not exactly put forward her best foot in trying to create an image of her as a decent parent.
But in truth, most social workers will give somebody in that type of situation more leeway. I mean, they're not like Mr. Bubbles and freaking Lilo and Stitch. But then again, Lilo and Stitch, they had a long time with Mr. Bubbles before he did anything. So, they're gonna give them some time. It's like, here's some adjustment period. We're just gonna check in and make sure nothing's there. We'll see if any abuse is going on. Mm-hmm. And usually 90% of the time, if there's no abuse or neglect, it ain't going anywhere. Social service ain't gonna take that child if there's no abuse or neglect. Now, I admit, with what happened with M3GAN, that might have constituted abuse and neglect.
Leaving your child in the care of an amoral murder bot might not be the best course of action, according to the state.
To be fair, when she found out it was a murder bot, like she put a stop in it. That's
she tried.
Better than zero, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
She did. She learned that maybe I want to be a parent after all at the end of this. So,
right.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
but actually, that does not to get hopefully too far ahead here, but I do love that particular parallel. And again, coming back to that scene where she confronts M3GAN and M3GAN basically tells her, you did not give me any guardrails. You programmed me and you failed to do this. But basically, she created this thing that would hopefully, for all intents and purposes, take her place as a parent. But I did see this written out somewhere. I can't remember. It might have been on IMDb. The idea that M3GAN is herself functionally a child. She is, for all intents and purposes, a new being as well, who is learning she's learning fast, and she's got the whole like the web at her. She can download anything she needs. But for all intents and purposes, she is also a child. And Gemma also failed as a parent with her. And that caused so many of the problems that came later.
Well, I mean, and then her boss doesn't help things either.
He's just a dick.
I mean, at the beginning of it, she was going to scrap the M3GAN project until the child came into her life, because he was basically said, no, we need a cheaper version of the disgusting perpetual pet thing. And
when we actually do see them in action, like they do kind of suck. Like they're gross.
Right.
It looks like something that would have been very popular in the 90s.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, only then could you have toys do really bizarre shit.
But yes, definitely the fact that he was unwilling to work with her, even though she's grieving the loss of her sister, and she is suddenly a new parent without having asked for it. And her niece is obviously clearly also grieving the loss of her parents. Her boss doesn't seem to give a shit. He's like, I gave you this deadline and I expect you to keep it. So if he'd been less of a dick, that also would have saved a lot of heartache later on.
You're right. Like Gemma points out, it's like, oh, there wasn't time to program in like this extra stuff that was vital.
Well, I did like how they introduced it to the boss with M3GAN having this perpetual smirk stuck on her face.
That smirk was creepy as shit. I loved it.
So I like how quickly he changes his mind after this is a waste of money, and then he watches it interact with Katie for a little bit, and he's like, okay, production cost, more or less than a Tesla? And Gemma has to like look at her assistants who are like, go down. It's like, less? I was like, yes.
I guess depending on the model.
Yeah, depending on the model. It's only a model.
Yeah, so a detail I missed the first couple times I saw this. Apparently, M3GAN would have retailed for $10,000.
Yeah.
So I had not heard what the MSRP would be the first time or so I watched this. So that was some new information I picked up.
So actually, when you think about it, I mean, if you think of it reductively as a toy, $10,000 is like, whew. But if we were talking about, like Brandon and I were talking earlier about how much it freaking costs to go to Disney World now.
Oh yeah.
This you could actually buy 5 M3GANs for apparently what it costs for a family to spend a week at Disney World. It's like, or you could buy her for the cost of a used car. I mean, it's expensive, but
a very good used car.
What's that?
A very good used car.
No, pretty much bottom of the barrel.
Are you talking about $10,000? Yeah, $10,000.
Yeah. If you go to CarMax with $10,000, you getting the bottom. You're not getting a great car. I mean, so the idea would be like rich families, they probably could buy a couple and be happy with it,
Probably would need this kind of nanny bot thing. Like that would appeal to them specifically. They made a little bit of a point of that when they were presenting M3GAN to the CEO. It's like his kids are around the same age. Like if we play this right, we could hit in the emotions, and I think that's our chance.
Oh, and that's how you do it. That's how you win over the sharks. He may be a greedy asshole, but he's not a stupid greedy asshole. Right. But obviously his employment practices do piss his employees off because one of his employees is stealing the stuff and selling it to other companies, doing corporate espionage.
I wonder if that's going to be our M3GAN sequel setup, that like the information to make M3GAN is somewhere else.
Well, or she escapes to the net. I mean,
both possibilities are there.
It could go that way too, because at the I mean, spoiler, obviously, but at the end of the movie, when her body's been destroyed, like the little AI assistant light in the house, like lights up and like looks around.
Well, we'd already been seeing hints of that. Gemma's personal, like, online assistant had already been corrupted and apparently taken over. And I don't think they really explicitly showed that M3GAN had control over it, but they definitely showed that she had the ability to infiltrate and corrupt other systems. Yeah.
It also would have been interesting if they had actually, if they hadn't made the mistake of leaving out the, that heat diffuser when they first activated her in front of him. So instead of it blowing up, if it had just glitched a little bit, but then, kept going. But it's, I mean, again, it was a combination of him, the daughter, or sorry, the niece, and
it's easy to kind of get that mixed up.
The social worker that finally gave her the final push that she needed to push it over the top and bring M3GAN into reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a great little introduction. And it's also in the scene where they do the presentation that if you really want to make a case as to where she learned the dance, you could see where Katie is kind of giving M3GAN a little push so that they can do that little back and forth dance together. You can tell that she was probably teaching her stuff like that at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but yeah, overall,
and the whole impetus to actually create M3GAN is from the early days of Katie living with Gemma, and she comes into her workshop, and they're just sort of talking, and she shows off her college project, Bruce, like the remote-controlled robot. And this is kind of a neat character moment for Gemma, and it kind of makes you understand her a little bit more, because if Katie says, "If I had a toy like Bruce, I wouldn't need anything else ever." And she just kind of like goes off on the inspiration from that. And Gemma just basically like fixes the problems with M3GAN. Well, okay, the basic problems with making something like M3GAN pretty much what looks like overnight. Like she's just like, "Oh, I think I have it figured out now." And she just like works in a frenzy.
Well, yeah, basically, and her initial thing, we were talking about like she created this thing to take the place of parents, but really, honestly, I think that you're right. That was really the moment where she made the decision to do it, and it was more of the idea of giving someone a toy that they could rely on, one that would last, one that, which in a sense, and this is probably one of the reasons why she obviously didn't get along with her boss, it's the exact opposite of the capitalist model. Everything is built to break down and be replaced. That is how things work nowadays. And here they are creating something that theoretically will never need to be replaced.
They basically made her into a military grade machine, which I think made her into a freaking Terminator, which I think is definitely an oversight. They didn't need to make her that strong. Make her some high grade plastics so that she can take a little bit of a licking, but
titanium frame, tempered ceramics. That's like, is this thing going to be like sweeping for mines? Why does it need that?
I mean, you're talking about try having a cost top.
But yeah, on the other hand, like I said, it is refreshing to see someone actually not think about, okay, so I need to program a failsafe so that she'll break down every 2 years and need to be replaced with a newer model. Because that would, if it was the guy, was it David, I think his name was, her boss, if he had spearheaded this project, you know that would have been on his thing. Would have been, how can we make sure they're going to have to buy a new one every couple or 3 years? You know, and that's like, so it's kind of refreshing that that was not part of the
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we also see how M3GAN is interacting with Katie, and a lot of that is told in the demonstration. You could see some time skip of their interaction together. M3GAN telling her, you know, what's right and wrong, which you see as changes as it goes on. And them forming more and more of a close bond, which is, you know, like I say, is good, but also a little bit disturbing.
Yeah, it's pretty unhealthy because it's so human-like that if you, like, other people in the movie needed constant reminders that it was like an android. Like, Gemma kept trying to be like, oh, it's just a doll. It's just a doll. It's like, no, it's more advanced than that, like, obviously.
And of course, then there's the neighbor. I really felt like they needed to go a little bit more bitchy with the neighbor or a little bit more friendly with the neighbor. I felt like I couldn't get a bead on whether she was bitchy or just annoyed at Gemma being so careless.
Well, they had a beef over her dog, and you know, a lot of dog lovers just really, 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 their dog can't do no wrong. But this was a large dog that did show violent tendencies that was being allowed to run free. And it just so happened Gemma wasn't going to take that lying down.
Well,
so yeah, of course her neighbor didn't like her.
Did the dog put the hole in the fence? How did the hole in the fence get there? I can't remember.
It's a big hole. Like it was introduced during the scene where Katie is just playing with a little toy bow and arrow in the backyard, and she asks M3GAN, it's like, can you find my arrow? And we just see this big hole in the fence, and it's like, it would have had to have been the dog, right? Like, how would that get there?
They allude to it at the beginning when she's complaining about the dog pooping in the yard, and you see the hole then.
Yeah.
But to me, fixing the hole wouldn't do any good because the dog could just go around the fence into the yard.
Right.
It wasn't like the whole yard was fenced in.
Now, the neighbor claimed that she had a shock collar on the dog, but it didn't seem to be working because we saw the dog in in Gemma's yard. It clearly was able to move beyond what were supposedly its new boundaries.
You know what it reminds me of? That movie, The Burbs, with Tom Hanks, where the guy intentionally sends the dog into the neighbor's yard to poop every morning.
That's making me think of it's a Simpsons joke with Reverend Lovejoy is walking his dog, and he makes sure to have it like only poop in Ned Flanders' yard. And Ned comes out, it's like, yeah. I'm trying to remember the exact setup. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be perfect. But Ned Flanders is like, hey, Reverend, what's your dog doing? Oh, no, bad dog. I condemn you to hell. And he whispers at it, good job. Keep going.
Yeah.
Let's say I feel like if they had given her more of an annoying character, like have a show of her sending the dog into the yard to poop or something, and then laughing at it as says like, yeah, that's what you get, and then come back and say, oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's got that shock collar, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just read it as, like I said, she's clearly a dog person who loved her dog more than her neighbors. And they clearly had very different views of, I guess you could say, being neighborly. Like, they had very different views of, Gemma says, don't be spraying that stuff right near my yard or whatever. I don't want it coming into the yard. Gemma herself was being a little less than tactful, I guess. But a lot of it was just the basic friction you get from two neighbors who have very, very, very different viewpoints on how to maintain their property. And having to deal with some of that myself, I know where that's coming from. I didn't see it as weird. I thought the neighbor made perfect sense.
Well, of course.
I thought she was enough of a bitch to deserve what happened, but
Of course, that hole in the yard did got M3GAN basically tossed around, but it was Katie that getting bit that was really the point where it's like M3GAN's like, nah, that ain't gonna happen. Where she then mimics the neighbor and gets the dog in, and dog dies essentially. I do like how it's kind of the opposite of how when M3GAN went to pick it up, she was pulled through the hole, and this time when the dog goes to pick up the treat, it's the dog that's yanked through the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was normally like a lot of people freak out about like violence towards dogs in movies, but that one was, I think, done maybe a little bit more tastefully than it is a lot of times. So I felt that was like, okay, people who have trouble with that should be able to manage this. It just kind of gets pulled off camera.
Yeah, that one was off camera even in the unrated version. So, but then of course the dog disappears, and of course, Gemma doesn't really care. It's like, that's fine, good riddance.
The neighbor calls the cops, and that's kind of I can see what they're saying with the comedy thing, because that scene is kind of funny when the neighbor like brings the cops over. It's like, do you know that the dog is missing? And the neighbor's like staying in the street. It's like, yeah, what do you know about it? And the cop is like, you're gonna stay over there like we discussed. It's like, what happened that we didn't see? And she like comes up to the window. She's like pounding on the window. The cop is like, okay, come on, and like quietly leads her away. It's like, this lady is kind of nuts.
But
good reason this time. But
M3GAN had also started learning about death and dying on her own, and utilized that when they did their big presentation, even that day where Katie kind of broke down about her parents. And in a nice little brilliant way. But yeah, I mean, which of course then leads to all of that, this is great. And of course you get to hear about the social worker talking about attachment theory and concerns in that way. In another scene, but it was a similar scene in that area.
What's happening back there?
The cat decided it wants to claw me.
Oh, well, fair point. Like I think I'm looking around in my workspace here, and whenever I like move, the chair creaks louder than I've ever heard it make noises before. So that's fair.
But we do see, of course, great success. You get to see the corporate espionage at work. And of course, they're getting her under legal because he has them the big spender has them pour him a drink. Then he hands it over to Gemma saying, you're going to want to get her under legal because we want to make sure that you're going to want to keep her because she's going to ask for a lot bigger salary.
Yeah.
She might want to renegotiate her contract. And he hands her the drink, and Dave is like, what?
Yeah, he thought that was going to be his ticket to the big time. But luckily, his boss was like, okay, well, this is the person who did the work, because that could have played out very differently in a lot of other companies. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, they knew that even with the corporate espionage, it would have taken any company years to get that, to even with those notes, to be able to replicate what she had already done. So they were already ahead of the game technology wise. But still, yeah, it's kind of sad that somebody was already doing it. I like how I was like, "Are you using Pornhub at work again?"
Yeah. And the way he responded, no, like, just, it was so obvious that he was doing something he should not be doing. And it's probably fortunate for him that his boss assumed he was watching porn.
I mean, if you had to do something illegal at work, like, it would, like, weirdo mastermind theory time, like, it would make sense to get caught doing something, like, kind of unsavory, but not too big of a deal once.
Yeah.
And then, if you get caught doing something worse, you can be like, oh, yeah, you caught me. I was doing that again. And they wouldn't really ask a whole lot of extra questions. So I felt that's what that character was kind of doing in that scene.
That's also after that you see how Katie is definitely over attached to M3GAN. She doesn't really want any other interaction, and how M3GAN is now kind of letting Katie rule the household,
right,
instead of Gemma.
Well, is Gemma starting to get more and more paranoid, really, but it's certainly concerned because the dog's gone missing. And then that kid gets killed at the camp or the school, I guess you could call it. And then the neighbor goes, and she knows who's doing it, but she keeps trying to find ways to prevent it from happening again. And Katie's starting to freak out about potentially losing her playmate. She clearly is. What was the term they used?
Well, they used attachment theory, but
no. The term they used for M3GAN attaching to Katie in the first place.
Pairing.
Pairing, yes. They made it very clear that M3GAN was paired to Katie, but it does get to the point where it seems like Katie has almost the stronger attachment of the two. And it is starting to cause serious problems.
Well, Katie is definitely at the core of M3GAN's programming.
Yeah.
Because even when M3GAN starts to totally go off rails, Katie is still at the very core of it. It's always, in her mind, she's doing everything that's best for her daughter.
Yeah.
She even says it at the end. It's like, as we raise our daughter.
Yeah. Well, and also, you see, like we mentioned, the part where she goes under the fence and the dog grabs her and is like thrashing her about and causing all this trouble. And M3GAN just kind of lets it happen. But then when she attacks Katie, that's when M3GAN's like, And, she doesn't really necessarily do anything right then other than making sure Katie's safe. But that's when she definitely hatches her plot against the dog. But then at the school, when that asshole kid starts harassing her, I don't know if y'all saw it the same way I did, but it almost looked like he was about to
that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, it looked like he was about to treat her like some kind of sex doll, basically. And she basically let it happen until it was like a certain point where I can't remember. I think he might have said something or something that kind of showed that he would be a threat to her.
Well, I feel like she was waiting it out. I really do feel like that M3GAN was waiting for the right opportunity to strike. I think she decided when she appeared standing there,
she had already decided he was a threat.
Yeah. I don't think she decided to kill him at first.
No.
I think that she wanted to basically hurt him and make him so scared he wasn't going to do anything. But then he fell down the hill and got hit by a car, which was almost comedic in that sense too.
It was.
Stands up and
he was such a douche. Yeah. But I don't think
there. That was great.
Yeah, I don't think she did intend to kill him either. But she certainly didn't. She wasn't upset, not at all. She's like, okay, this isn't what I planned, but Katie's safe now. It's like,
for me.
Yeah, it works. But if she hadn't ripped his ear off first, she probably would have gotten away with it too. But then I guess that cop said they found the ear
like up the bank.
Yeah. And that just made Gemma go, oh shit.
That's when she really started to suspect M3GAN, and then of course the neighbor disappeared not long after that.
Yeah.
And that one I think was just more M3GAN be like, nah, this person's annoying and a potential threat in the future, so I'm just taking you out now.
Right.
That's when she really became proactive, I guess is the word, whereas she was more reactive with the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she started thinking, like, wait a minute, is there a chance that this is what's really going on here? Because the cop kind of lays it out after, like, the neighbor disappears. It's like, she starts putting it together. It's like, this is the second statement you've given in a week. This thing with the neighbor. And it's like, where's M3GAN been? And we can access, like, the camera data. And it's like,
yeah. I just had a thought. Of she basically started looking for you could say she started looking for obstacles to Katie's happiness. And I'm reminded of Shampoo's mantra from Ramo and Half. Obstacles is for killing.
And there were opportunities for her to still rein it back, but instead of trying to go through things with M3GAN and sort things out right then and there, just like shut down. Or even when she put that one parameter in place, she's like, okay, downloading. All right, shut down. Download may be lost. And she's like, just shut down. Because
well. I did like that. Like, she's almost a little smartass about it. She's like, if you shut me down, it may be like you said, may be lost. And I'm like,
it's like, and Gemma just doesn't understand what she's dealing with for a lot of the movie too. Like, she doesn't understand that she's created like a more or less genuinely alive like thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're supposed to just, obey all my commands. It's like, why aren't you listening to me? And it's kind of like maybe she thought Katie would be the same way, like at first.
Yeah.
Like she'd just be like, oh yeah, you should do this. You need to do this. And it's like, well, why aren't you listening? It's like, oh, well, maybe you'll listen to somebody else. Because in that montage where they're showing the things that M3GAN can help Katie with, it's like, don't forget to wash your hands. And it like reminds her like a bunch of times.
Seriously, Katie, flush the toilet.
Right.
Oh yeah, it was flushing. My bad.
Well, and wash your hands.
We did say wash your hands as well. Yeah. But I was kind of amused by that too. But yeah, it really though, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the commentaries that was trying to be made. And it's not an uncommon one in this kind of movie. I mean, you see the same basic idea in Ex Machina, and you probably, a number of others where you have a strongly functional android kind of character, or AI kind of character. The whole idea of they used the fact that she was not pre-programmed with a bunch of set responses, pat responses, pre-programmed. The idea that she is not pre-programmed was one of the big selling points, and yet they never really truly considered what it meant. Like the one guy at one point said something about it should just be a word salad. It's like, no, if you're really trying to program someone to be able to hold a conversation with someone, to be able to understand and react and adapt, it's not, you can't expect them just to be reciting word salad and following every single command without adaptation, or, because that's completely the opposite of what you've programmed it to do. And so these people are caught by surprise by the fact that this person, AI, this, toy, quote unquote, is doing all this stuff, is learning so fast, is,
it's just flat
that's
out.
how she was programmed.
In a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Like, it just outthinks them so readily.
Yeah. And then, of course, I'm also reminded of another line from Mr. Ian Malcolm. These scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they'd never stop to think that they should.
That is a pretty good analysis there, actually. Yeah. This movie. Like, Gemma was just so obsessed with, can this work? But she just didn't pay attention.
She does end up wrapping M3GAN up and taking her to the lab to be reevaluated, which is not even long before the big presentation where M3GAN is supposed to be revealed to the world.
Yeah, they said they had like 4 hours till that was going to happen.
Right.
And of course, she decides she has a big heart-to-heart with Katie and is able to get her to understand that, okay, this isn't as healthy, and maybe she needs to be more of a parent, and they need to connect more, and they have their little moment, and let's go home together and screw the rest of the world. So M3GAN ends up jacking basically everything and escaping and slaughtering at least 2 people, the boss and the mole, which you get to see that dance in that hallway that they show in every commercial. I still say that they missed an opportunity to have her do more dancing throughout the movie, because I think that the actress that was in the suit was trained in dance, so that would have been. For a lot of this movie, I had thought that M3GAN was like mostly CGI. It didn't, or like a puppet. Like, it didn't occur to me that was like a person in a suit until I saw the extras, and it was like, oh, there's like this 8-year-old girl in the suit. It's a suit. I gotta love that.
I was a little freaked out.
They definitely use
ages very well. I guess they were older then.
They definitely use CGI, and I think they use some animatronics too. But yeah, you're right. A lot of that was acted out physically. One thing that I did find weird, and I wonder if they said anything about it in the bonus features. I think it's Jenna Davis that plays M3GAN and voices her. But I think they said that there was a placeholder actress voicing her in the film. And did they say why they did it that way, with a placeholder who ended up getting dubbed over? Like that?
I would assume so that the actors would have something to play off of, like, on the set, and then to make M3GAN's voice like different, because it doesn't sound organic. Like, it sounds produced, but not in the typical like stuttered computer way. I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words for me.
I thought the voice acting was pretty impressive. I was like, it sounds almost natural, but off.
Exactly.
They did a really good job with that.
Exactly. Like, it's somehow it's slightly mechanical in a way you can't describe.
Actually, I wonder if that's what they did with the voice, because I say it sounds auto-tuned, and maybe that's exactly what they did. Maybe they put it into an auto-tuner because it gives it that slight weird metallic quality. Because if you listen to any musician who uses auto-tuning, it does sound like that.
I did read that they definitely used auto-tuner for certain parts, like toward the end where she's glitching. They used auto-tune to help get the glitching effect. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that would make sense. Are we looking it up?
But I thought that, like, overall it was a good film. With that, I mean, the killing was very interesting at that point. I did like how when she's in there, it's like, so were you the kind of person who couldn't live with the guilt? He's like, no, I could have.
Right.
Yeah, she basically tries to. She acts like she's going to frame the assistant for killing Dave, and then she just cuts his throat anyway. Which another one of our differences in rated versus unrated. In rated, she just kind of cuts away, and you see both their bodies in the elevator later. And then in the unrated one, she just like whacks his throat with that thing, and the blood goes everywhere.
I'm wondering if I didn't see the unrated one, because you're really not. I did see that. There was definite blood spray on his death. So maybe I did see the unrated.
It is one of those. It is one of those movies where the difference is really, really small and really subtle, and I probably wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't seen them pointed out in an article. So it's like literally like 6 seconds difference in the runtime.
I mean, of course, M3GAN steals a car and then heads back home. Right. And I say one of the scenes that I think is very well done in this is where they are getting their they're just having a moment, and she's out on her own. She knows the lights don't turn on, but she hears the piano. And then, of course, when she goes into the room, she notices M3GAN sitting there at the piano playing it.
Yeah.
And I really love that scene because there's not just M3GAN trying to figure out what she wants to be to protect Katie, but she's also kind of angry with Jenna because I mean, she even says it, before she was even in the body as just a basic AI. They would talk all night, and in a way, she felt betrayed because she had considered Gemma a friend, which she realized that Gemma did not consider her that. And of course, her plan was, we're going to raise Katie together, and you're going to do everything I say. I'm going to run the household. And then when when Gemma says, I'm never going to do what you want, and if you kill me, that's like, oh, that her plan was sinister. About like, if I jab you with this pin in the right place, you'll be permanently paralyzed and unable to talk. And then you'll see how useful I can really be.
Right.
That's so threatening about it too. It's like, I have another feature you haven't figured out: palliative care. And she normally explains it, and I think that was actually creepier than just, it's like, yeah, I could do this, because it's like you see the logic she's using to come to that conclusion. She's like talking you through it, and it's like, oh, how did you think of that?
Yeah.
Well, then she offers to let Katie help her, which is like, God.
So, oh yeah, that's another. That scene is another one where you can figure out which cut you saw, like unrated versus rated, because in the rated one, M3GAN says, I will rip your head off your neck, and in the unrated one, she says, I will rip your head right off your fucking neck. So like we get a lot of extra fucks in the unrated one.
Oh, they gave a few more fucks this time around.
Well, they're allowed one in PG-13. So
yeah, they used it pretty well at the school where they're like introducing like the moms and stuff. It's like, that's my son right there. He's like, he's great. And the mom says something like friendly but kind of annoying to the son, and he's just like, fuck off, Holly. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Point made.
I do like how Katie decides to fight back by using an android that Gemma introduced earlier that she could remote control. She kind of made her own little robotic friend in school. And I liked how the gloves activated like that. I thought that was really cool. And then the fact that she basically brute forces M3GAN and rips her in half, which I just...
Mm-hmm.
That was like a cool and intense experience there.
Mm-hmm.
But they do
battle.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I said that was a good battle. I was agreeing with you.
But yeah, eventually they take out that central core, or they actually stab it, I believe, at the end. And M3GAN shuts down. Or does she? Dun, dun, dun. With them finally, having peace as sirens come in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good creepy ending with the... I'm trying to remember what the home AI's name was.
Oh.
I'm at a loss. But anyway, like having that little thing like on the counter like light up, and I think it like turns to look at the camera because it's got like a swiveling camera, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like that was such a good touch. So we have like multiple venues for where like the sequel could come from.
Mm-hmm. You even have it set up. I don't know if this would be a thing, but you not only have the standard route of either M3GAN is still around in the ether and she finds a way to be threatening that way, or the competition managing to create their own devices or what have you. You almost even have a potential versus battle set up by that. So there are a lot of possible options.
You could still do that Chucky crossover.
I was gonna say, like, make it M3GAN versus Buddy.
And I have to admit, I'm a bad movie fan. I still have yet to see any of the Child's Play or Chucky movies, but I'm familiar enough with the imagery. And am I correct? Do y'all feel I'm correct that in that later scenes where M3GAN is torn and mutilated and pretty much gone insane, that they were trying to make her kind of look like Chucky? I really thought that I got a Chucky vibe there.
Like a frazzled hair. I could see how.
Yeah.
I could see that maybe.
I think they're trying to homage it, definitely.
Yeah, there is a hidden Chucky I know of, but it's not in this. It's in Dead by Daylight, and one of the killers is called the Dredge, and it's basically like a dark shadow being, and its actual body is held together by a shadow, but made from just kind of junk it finds, usually like bones and like loose flesh from victims. But it has this one outfit where it's just like a bunch of broken dolls cobbled together. And I think it's on the elbow of one of its arms. One of the programmers put in like a Chucky face complete with red hair and blue eyes. Like as a secret gag that I'm impressed they got away with. So
for all I know, the people who hold the rights were amused by it enough that they let it go. But it depends on the right holders usually. That's the some don't have a sense of humor.
Yeah, some are definitely no fun. True.
But that was M3GAN. I mean, I think it was a really good film. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I'll admit. When I originally watched it, it was much better than I thought it was going to be. But I also had been really dying to see it regardless, which is kind of weird that I had low expectations, but really wanted to see the film anyway. So I was very glad that I still got to see it, and it's kind of cool to be able to discuss it.
Yeah, it had a lot of buzz, so it was something that I think you would kind of have to see. It's just so, I mean, at least this is how I am. Like, if something has like a lot of like good press, like I want to see it to know what people are talking about. And M3GAN is definitely one of those movies. where it's like, oh, I'm hearing so much about this, and it's all good things. Like, I gotta check this out.
That's like the opposite of Brandon.
What?
The more good buzz it has, the less Brandon wants to see it.
Ah, I see.
The more people say this is the best movie, you have to see it. The more I'm like, no, I don't. I don't have to see it.
So annoying. But anyway, no, I admit I'm kind of like that too. I obviously we have different sources for buzz, but the sources I'll use, like if I see something that consistently across the board, everyone's like, this movie's the shit. I'm like, okay, I want to see that. But if I hear almost nothing about it, it really depends on whether, maybe I really like an actor in it, but if I've heard nothing about the movie, I'll be like, okay, well, if I have time. This one, to me, I feel like there was buzz. There was enough that it was on my radar, but I don't feel like there was a huge amount that I saw.
Not in your circles. Yeah. And in the horror circles or in the TikTok circles, this was huge. I could not get away from it.
My TikTok circles primarily revolve around cat videos, so
I rarely ever do TikTok or anything like that.
I found this TikTok channel where the cats are like mine. It's creepy and eerie, and so I love watching that channel. But anyway.
Well, I guess we can go into production value. We talked a bit about that they use a lot more practical effects than you would expect from a film like this.
Right, and they actually built a lot of the sets, which they said in the extras that was something that they thought, oh, we'll just go find these places, and then they said it was funny because they ended up just building a lot of them, and we saw quite a few, like, it was like a big indoor warehouse where they had what looked like most of Gemma's house interior. And they said it turned out to being like better for them because that meant they could like take walls down and they needed different angles, whereas you can't do that in a house. So,
not to mention that big throwdown at the end where they were wrecking all kinds of shit. It's good to be able to do that and not have to worry about paying someone for repairs.
Or wreck it.
But I will admit I like the production values overall. I was impressed by the effects and by it. I feel like it was pretty clear that they used a lot of practical effects, but I feel like the CG was integrated well for the most part.
It was hard to notice, yeah.
Yeah. So I was fairly impressed by that. And again, it brought to mind this movie on several levels brought to mind Ex Machina, and that one I really did think was an excellent film that, like I said, it did cover a lot of similar ground. And I believe that one ended up winning the Oscar for visual effects.
That one did use a lot more CG, though.
It did use more CG, but it was kind of similar in a lot of ways. I think this one did look a little more homemade, but that fit the story really well. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, how about music? I mean, I thought that the music was memorable in pieces.
Yeah.
Some of the music, like they played at the dance or some of the other things, you could definitely kind of hear it in your head, but it's not enough to where it got stuck in my head. But I thought it was fairly decent overall.
That's pretty much what I thought too. There's a good number of like pop songs that I didn't know were pop songs. Like I think some of the songs that M3GAN sings, like that Titanium one, I think that is a pop song. But from just somebody I've never heard of before.
She definitely sang some classics, some of the songs that you would recognize pretty easily. But yeah, there were also some that I didn't recognize. I know the end credits, there was a song Silicon Chip. I don't think that was new. I really don't know, but it was a pretty cool way to end it. But you guys didn't get the perpetual pets jingle stuck in your minds.
I did not. Although one thing I thought was cool in that piano scene, did you guys figure out she was playing toy soldiers?
I had heard that, yes, and that was it was a nice rendition, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I don't know, that felt like really, that felt like almost like a cool secret joke. Because as she's coming to grips with, it's like, oh, I am a robot, I am artificial, but I'm definitely alive and aware. You know, and then just like remembering the lyrics of Toy Soldiers. Well, yeah, I thought that was really cool.
At least they resisted what must have been the temptation to play I Got No Strings.
I think, didn't they do that in Age of Ultron? I think that would have been...
I believe so, yes.
I think they probably didn't do it. If they had been tempted to do that, I think they didn't just because of that. It's like, oh, well, they did that in Avengers. People would think we're hacks.
I feel like there was another recent movie, but maybe that was it.
I mean, there might be another recent movie, but that's the one I remember that most people, I think, would be more familiar with.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's the whole of it. I guess we can get into some favorites. What about you, Jake? What's your favorite scene in M3GAN? And what would you have done for a virtual pet like in this?
Oh, God. Those virtual pets were so hideous. But are you meaning like one of those models or like an actual?
well, like those models.
Oh God, they were.
Would you have loved a virtual pet as a kid like that?
No. I didn't need one of those. I wouldn't have needed one of those. And I loved how they advertised. It was like, you could get didn't they say something like you could get a dog, but what about when it dies or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, there's some pretty forceful lyrics.
Yeah. Hey. Oh, no, I don't know. As far as favorite scenes, man. I'm not so sure that there was any specific ones that like leapt out at me. Like I said, I really liked when they first put the mask on and they were doing the facial things, and then it got stuck. It wasn't confused, right? Was what they were trying to do, and instead she did that creepy ass smirk, and then it got stuck on that, and I just liked that. It was really effective somehow. And there were a couple other good scenes, like the scene where Gemma confronts M3GAN and realizes what a horrible mistake she's made was really good. But I guess if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with David accusing Kirk, Kirk, whatever his name is, of watching porn at the office. I just, that was funny. Where he came up, are you watching porn
again? No. Why do you sound so guilty?
Right.
So, what about you, Dustin? What's your favorite scene, and would you have wanted one of those virtual pets as a kid?
I remember I used to really want a Furby until I actually saw one in person. So I think I probably would have wanted one, but I might have gotten bored of it pretty quick. At some point at a garage sale, I did get a Furby for $1. I have no idea what the hell happened to it. But anyway, as for my favorite scene, I think most of it would be like the dialogue scenes with M3GAN talking to either people she's going to kill or to Gemma. I think in particular the ones where she like asks questions about death, and the after she kills that like bully kid, Katie's like, do you think Brian's in a better place? No.
Yeah.
If
there is a heaven or hell, you know that we both know.
Brandon, don't go there.
Yeah. Exactly.
I appreciate it when they don't like sweeten things up for no reason. And it's like, is he in a better place? No. Do you think that's true? No. So I enjoy that, I think, the most. But really, all of M3GAN's dialogue it's what makes her kind of a. I think that is what makes her such a suddenly popular like horror character. Is that like it says like it has like more to the things it says.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know how I can. I mean, I'm sure that sounded really clumsy, but it's not just like I'm gonna kill you because this. It's like here's why I think I have to kill you.
And again, also just the way she's voiced really is effective. It's not like she doesn't sound like a creepy killer villain. She sounds like a flat, emotionless robot. Kind of like Hal. In 2001, it's kind of Hal doesn't sound like a maniacal villain. He's just perfectly normal.
It's completely calm. Function.
Rational. Yeah. Yeah. And I will also add to my list M3GAN playing the piano because that was creepy and weird and great music all at the same time.
Yeah, I think that for me, definitely her playing the piano. Also the dance, because I had been trained to look for that dance for so long before I saw that darn film that it was a good payoff to finally see it. But as far as as a kid, I probably would have gone for that ugly thing because I really wanted a Teddy Ruxpin as a kid.
Oh my God! Yes.
Oh, they were hideous too.
Yes, I was saying that bothers me as an adult. So maybe as a kid, I'd have been like, "Yeah, this thing doesn't look creepy as hell," and been fine with it. And as a kid, like most kids, I like the fart jokes, so I would have been fine with that. I grew up in an age where it was gross out stuff. That was the big thing. When I was in my when I was around between 9 and 12 was like prime time gross out humor for kids. So
yeah, we got to mention with those toys, you did a sort of you mind feeding it, and at a certain point, it actually shat out little pellets.
Yes.
Yes, I admit I probably would have been amused by that as a kid.
I wouldn't have, but I liked other stuff that was weird too. Like we used to have this. It was like a head you could put clay on, and you could have it have oozing boils and stuff. It was like the Monster Maker X head. It was pretty sick. Like I really liked it.
Well, I remember there was a similar clay toy where you would pump clay into a you basically, it was a skeleton. You would pump clay into it through a plastic mold that goes around it, so it would look like you molded a body around it, and it could take damage and the clay would fall off. It was kind of an interesting concept.
I think I had that or something very similar to that. Like that was one of my favorite toys. I love stuff like that. Like I think I even had like a model skeleton that I would just put clay on. Or yeah, I did. I had different like plastic dinosaur skeletons, and like the older I got, the more complicated I made it. Like I had one of those DK books where it's like, this is what we theorized the organs of a dinosaur would look like. And I actually like made little organs off the diagrams and put them inside the skeleton and like gave it skin. Like, I don't know why I did that. I had a lot of free time on my hands as a child.
I think that's the thing. When you're a child, you have a ton of free time and very little to do with it. But anyway, you're an adult, you have plenty to do, but no free time.
Yeah, doesn't that suck?
Yeah. But with that being said, well, why don't we go ahead with outros? Dustin, where can we find you at?
Well, you can find me on Twitter as Cryptaxis, or I guess it's X now, whatever. And I think I am also I think I'm Cryptaxis on Blue Sky, which I need to start using more and more. I have a YouTube channel for my horror collecting and other stuff that I'm desperately trying to make, called The Crypt of Horrors, which I would like to change to Cryptaxis eventually, just because it's easier. And I have an Instagram, The Crypt of Horrors, also hoping to be changed to Cryptaxis soon too. So I shot a bunch of stuff at the beginning of the year, and everything has just been so ridiculous. I have had no time to really work on it, but I'm trying to get back to it. I am toying with the idea of maybe starting like a Patreon, because I realized that the reason I haven't been making anything is because there's like no money or time. And if I could somehow make any money at all doing this, that would kind of free me up to actually create some stuff again. So, yeah. We're looking into that, and that's pretty much how you can find me. Just YouTube, Instagram, Twitter /X, and Blue Sky.
And you'd see a lot of cool stuff on that as well, with a lot of albums and stuff that you don't usually see as much of those types of collectibles elsewhere. So I always like watching when you get something that comes up. And though I do not do X, I don't even do, well, I've got a Threads account, but I don't do anything with it.
Probably start on Threads. That's a whole other thing I need to make myself do.
But definitely, I understand that whole deal. How about you, Jake? What's up in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the occasional co-host of YouTube channel SeptumSin versus the World. And I also just keep very, very busy. Most of the time, I do have a job that theoretically pays the bills, but also keeps me busy most of the time. But I'm also the co-founder of RVA Homegrown Natives, a local native plant nursery. And we had a very big event over the weekend. We must be doing something right, because we managed to move $400 worth of plants when it was 100 friggin' degrees outside. So that's a good thing. It makes me think that that the fall could be good times, but it's going to be busy. And I do try, when possible, to get a lot of reading and viewing in, including my movies, that I get to join these fine folks once a week to talk about movies. And again, this one, it turns out, being a 2022 release, is one of the films eligible for our upcoming Versus Awards. We will have nominations close at midnight Eastern Time on Wednesday. So anyone in our audience who has ideas that they would like to participate in the nominations process, well, I wouldn't mind hearing some ideas. Just make sure, we do have that page up that from last year that I might try to hop on there after we're done and get it kind of reactivated on the Facebook. But at any rate, yeah, I guess that does it for me this go around. Go for it.
And of course, anybody can post on the Versus Awards page if you're a member. Though I had to go back and kick off some spam bots, so it is subject to approval by the administrator,
All right.
which is me or Jake on that page. But I run SeptumSin versus the World, which run it sounds like it actually would be something. But right now it's kind of on hiatus, though we're going to try and put up a video. We're going to film a video for the channel not too far in the future we're kind of sporadically uploading for that one while we plan for even bigger programming at a later date. I've got a couple pots in the fire right now, project-wise, that are taking up more of the time. I am making I've already made another physical release for Anhedenia Filmz. There is an animation collection that will be out on SRS soon. We had an issue with one of the discs, but we have fixed that. So it should be out soon. And that's a pretty cool looking set. Matter of fact, I gifted Jake one of those because I had an extra when I was doing all my repairs. And I also am working on 2 movies. One is kind of a solo project, more of a documentary film. And the other is, well, one we've talked about, Amityville Webcam, which is kind of a interesting horror comedy, having to kind of making fun of the whole Amityville craze that's been going along. And our filming is going much smoother than I had thought. Though, if things work out well, and these next 2 weeks, I'll keep my fingers crossed, we'll actually have a good 90% done, which is quite amazing. So I'm definitely looking forward to more development on that front. But of course, we also have a new month coming up, which is Action August. Well, submissions have been in, and I went ahead and I rolled up 4, and I will go ahead and read off the names. So the first week actually the last week in August, Jake will lead us with Baby Driver.
Ooh.
So that's going to be an interesting one. I'll get a chance to watch my copy. Then, of course, going back to the third week in August, we have Crank, which Dave will lead with us. Or rather,
finally get to watch it sober.
It's a fun and intense film, and I don't know whether watching it sober is a good thing. Then Tammy will lead us with the second week, which is the original Lethal Weapon, which will be great to revisit that one. And then the first week, we'll actually start off with an action animu called Dead Leaves. And I will say this, if you like a lot of violence and sex in your stuff, you should check out Dead Leaves. It is on Tubi. So it's going to be a very fun upcoming. Well, I guess that's it.
So you were ranking up there. Did you say Dead Leaves?
Yep, Dead Leaves.
Oh, dear me.
As I said, it is slightly violent and gory and has some sex in it. So sex, violence, and gore. You can't go wrong with that in your action film.
Is it like Perfect Blue or
that shit insanity?
Yeah. It is one of those that's balls to the wall action with a lot of craziness in between.
Oh, well, it turned out I really enjoyed Perfect Blue. So
Perfect Blue was anything by Satoshi Kon is a freaking excellent piece to do. But definitely not action. But yes, Perfect Blue was excellent. I'm glad that you did get to see it, though. That is good.
Yeah, it was on the last drive-in, and I was like, I don't know. And then it started, and it's like, oh, okay. Wow, this is pretty great.
It is cool, yes.
It does have a couple of suspenseful moments, like when they're in the parking garage and that music starts playing in the parking garage.
Yeah.
It was creepy. But with that being said, I hope you all have enjoyed this time with us tonight. Dave will definitely be back next week, and I'm sure he'll be kicking it off like we always do, as I torture them with some insane violence, ultra violence.
Yeah.
A little of the old ultra violence. Yes.
Well, Dave's seen this one before, so he'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you all have a good one, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Later. Good night. Subscribe and stuff.